Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Five Heart Podcast, brought to you by CornNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko. Joining me as always, founder, fearless leader of CornNation.com, Mr. John Dam Johnston. And absent, at least currently, we have reached out. We certainly hope that he's okay, is Todd Wolverton. If he joins us, he'll be joining us in progress. It's 9:00. We decided we were tired because we're old and a little bitter tonight. And so we decided to move on without him. So, hello, John. How are you, sir?
Bitter.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
Mm-hmm. I'm mad at myself, really.
Why?
I turned the game on. And right when I turned the game on, Northwestern, by the way, folks, if you're for context, we're recording this Wednesday night. It was first round of the Big Ten tournament. Nebraska had a 14-point lead at halftime, and Nebraska lost by 2. I want you to think about that. But I turned
to them. They lost by 2 to them fucking nerds.
To the nerds of Northwestern.
I mean, come on. Goddamn, Northwestern.
It makes me so sad.
It does.
It does. That wasn't, like false, fake reaction or anything like that. But I turned the game on with 5 to 6 minutes left, and right when I turn it on, the first thing that I hear is Northwestern hits a 3 to I think the game within 1 or 2 points, and I damn near just turned it right back off. I should have, but I didn't. I kept watching, and the last couple of offensive possessions for Nebraska went nowhere. They were some out of control, offensive drives, and look, I didn't watch enough of the game or enough of the season to complain about Big Ten officiating. I do that all the time in football. But there was a block called against Nebraska in one of the final Northwestern possessions, and right down the other side of the court, other end of the court, there was a charge called against Nebraska. So they couldn't win for trying. And in the end of the day, John, their season ends. I don't want to focus necessarily on that loss to Northwestern. I know it's going to piss, it's going to sting the most because that's the last game of the season. Let's talk about the last week and a half to 2 weeks of the regular season. This Nebraska team did, they did some good things. They beat a good Penn State team. They beat Ohio State, and they beat on I shit you not Sunday. It's not. I asked if it was anything like no sit Sunday. I was told no, so I said I shit you not Sunday. On the road in Madison, they beat number 10 Wisconsin, best team in the league. And I know you got a huge kick out of that because and reading your recap on Coordination was so much fun because Brad Davison has been at Wisconsin for 43 years, and to see him crying on the last time on his home court. Again, I wasn't watching. I was going by, at least our hopes. It had to be fun.
Yeah, that motherfucker's going to be 55 years old. And he's going to be sitting at a barbecue somewhere, and some other guy's going to look at him and go, "Didn't you lose your last game at home to Nebraska?" He's going to think about this the rest of his life. And that brings me joy because I'm kind of an asshole, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the last 3 games were a lot of fun. I mean, they were wins, and you really got to see a Nebraska team that played well together. In the first half of the Northwestern game, they looked like they look like a whole gob of moving parts that all the other parts knew where every other moving part was at every time on the floor. And the offense was amazing. First half against Northwestern, they had 26 points in the paint, I think. And the Northwestern did exactly the coach, who was that? Collins changed how he was playing and took exactly advantage of what he needed to do.
Chris Collins, the head coach.
He went into the 3-2 zone, and there was a big hole in that zone, right in front of the basket. And the only guy that we really have as a threat, as a big guy right there, is Derek Walker, and he can't do everything all the time. Eduardo Andre played better in the last 3 games, but he's still not an offensive, nobody's going to be terrified that he's going to suddenly go off and score 24 points. So, that's where Northwestern really shut us down, is we didn't have an answer for that. And I'm hopeful that Fred Hoiberg next year can, I think he has some big guys coming in, and he has Alec Koyanets, who's redshirted, didn't play all year. I think he's a 7-footer. And is he Ukrainian, Serbian? I can't remember. But they took advantage of that. And then the other problem was our Bryce McEwan didn't play well.
He did not.
We shot like 3 of 15, 3 of 18 from 3. It was disappointing, but man, our Northwestern account, the Inside NU guy, tweeted toward the end of the game. He said, this is exactly how I expect Ireland to go.
Oh no, I saw that. And
what a prick.
Yeah. Also, probably not wrong if we're being honest.
God, who knows?
Lithuania. Oleg Koyanets.
Koyanets.
Lithuania. Eduardo Andre is from England. I didn't know that.
I guess I didn't either. I didn't think about it. He's progressed, but I don't think he's progressed enough.
Well, it's
the other problem is that you have Bryce was shooting poorly, and I wonder if his wrist bothered him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lat Man in the first half had a really giant guy fall on his head or on his neck. So, he's another guy that's got some range to him, and he sat out the rest of the first half. So, but yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, the end of the game was, what it was? It was a typical Northwestern game, and every sport they play, it turns into a fucking rock fight, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just get into this kind of a rock fighty thing. And first half, Eduardo, that whole game came down to any one of 20 block or charge calls would never make any sense to anybody, unless that's why they put that little circle out there, so the refs didn't have to decide anymore. They can just automatically call, blocking when that circle's there, which makes sense because there's no difference between a block or a charge. It's just little squirrels turning around in the ref's head. So any one of those calls could have gone either way. Eduardo Andre in the first half, I don't know if you saw this, but he accidentally tipped a missed ball back into the bucket, which is one of the weirder things I've ever seen. You had a technical called on Derek Walker for apparently said something at the ref or to the ref or in the ref's direction, which apparently they're all very sensitive human beings now. And because you literally saw on camera one of the nerdy guys say the F word very emphatically. There's no technical called on that motherfucker. So, but yeah, it was disappointing. It was
time out. I like how you setting the stage and explaining the scene. You said you had one of those and you guys saying the F word very emphatically. Those nerdy motherfuckers.
Well, God dang it. I mean, if you think about it, Northwestern, our attitude toward Northwestern is they're nerds and we should beat them up all the time, just like in that movie. And then they always cause us problems. Maybe not in baseball as much, but,
Which movie are you talking about?
Nerds. Isn't there a nerd movie?
There's Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, they're that, yeah.
But if you remember that movie, John, that's an 80s. Look, if you're younger than me and you're not sure what Revenge of the Nerds was, it's an 80s college comedy starring, among other people, Anthony Edwards, who would, go on to play Goose. And then he went on to have a long career in television in the hospital drama ER. But it's about nerds, hence the title, who are secluded. They want to be participants in on-campus activities at this college. They're not invited. So they say, well, what can we do to form our own fraternity? And so they are the Lambdas. And of course, they are picked on and abused by the Alpha Betas. None of the tri-pies are going to the Lambda dance open house. You got to have the Omega Moos coming in. But these nerds.
You know the whole plot of this movie.
I do. There's the very famous panty raid and scene with the installation of the security cameras. There's the where they take all of the football players' jocks and they cover them in I guess the 1980s equivalent of icy hot liquid, so that all the football players run off. But in the end, the nerd gets the girl, and I'll never forget as long as I live. It doesn't age well, it's 40 years old. But she thinks she's with her boyfriend. It ages
well. You know the plot to it, for God's sake, man. And the people that were in it.
This particular scene doesn't age well when we discuss consent. But she thinks she's with her Alpha Beta leader boyfriend. However, it's the nerd who took his Halloween costume, and she doesn't know it's him until after they've done the deed. And then he removes his mask, or she removes his mask, and he says, "Oh, whoa, you're really good." And he says, "Well, all jocks ever think about is sports, and all us nerds ever think about is sex." And then that was, for her worthy to,
went right off there, didn't you? Just went, hi, small child.
We're going to have to edit this portion out. What?
After you're working, let me in.
I love you too.
Stay with me after work.
Maybe.
Okay.
Go to bed. Go to sleep.
Go to bed. I'm sorry.
Just leave it in.
I'm cutting that.
Have you? Okay, so
they actually made a Revenge of the Nerds 2, and
yes,
I believe 3.
I don't remember my movies that well. They all went away with the death thing.
It's like raunchy teen comedy, but from almost 40 years ago.
Okay. Wow, we're just going to get off the Nebraska trail because I don't think there's not anything else really going on a lot. I mean, we could go over football practice, but
baseball.
This is going to be a really
baseball
big.
Had a better week.
Baseball, but I think this is going to be a real big problem going forward with Nebraska football. Is there is spring practice, and I think Casey Thompson looks like a very stand-up guy, and he speaks well, but I just get the idea that everybody's, this is the same movie again. And we don't get to see the ending until fall starts. And everybody is like, maybe that's just me. It'd be nice to get some comments on that though. Are people paying attention? Because whenever I ask, I get the feeling that put it this way, I can see it in our stats. You can tell what I've been doing this now, 16 years, 17 years? I don't know, whatever the math says. But when you look at your web views and stuff like that, I mean, they're in the shitter because nobody's really interested.
Going back to the movie analogy, not a movie plot. I'm not going that, but really like August is sort of the second act of a movie. Like we're all in the first, or if you want to, talk about trilogies, we're in the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, where we're just walking around. There's not a whole lot of excitement going on right now.
That's a good point. I'll never think of that book the same way.
If it makes you feel any better, I've never even read the book, but I have the movie.
Okay.
But we're not going on another diatribe about cinema. No, it's you have different storylines because there are a lot of new pieces this year, from the coaching staff that came on, and then the transfer portal acquisitions. And I don't know if you saw it. I think you saw this because it was in the Slack chat room. But there was a comment that Casey Thompson made about, and so Sam McEwan tweeted this message out, and I don't know if it came from a press conference or something like that, but he says Casey Thompson says the NIL opportunities at Nebraska are better or at NU, so slightly redundant, than at Texas, in part because Lincoln is more close knit than Austin. And Ochan Mathis, a defensive, like a rush end from Kansas State, who I believe is in the portal, and has selected Nebraska as one of his, final five, retweeted that with some wide-eyed "tell me more" emojis. So it's very interesting. Like, kind of like, oh, you have my attention type of emojis.
Oh, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
And again, emojis, with the exception of the pile of shit, they're all really open to interpretation.
That's the only one I ever use. I literally sometimes text my kids, and I will text them, this was a really funny video, surprised emoji, and I'll write it out. I won't use, I don't know what the fucking surprise emoji looks like. I'll write out like happy emoji just because I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh.
In a similar old man mode, I will sometimes in joke, I don't really use hashtags too often, but I will, like in a text to a buddy, I'll write out the word hashtag and then the word that it would be a hashtag in social media. So you say, oh my God, and I apologize.
I did piss off a lot of Husker Twitter today.
What'd you do?
I tweeted. You should never tweet.
What'd you do, buddy? What'd you say?
I have not been sleeping well lately, probably because of the stress I've been putting myself through to finish this next book, which I turned into an editor Monday. Mm-hmm. And I'm going through book cover drafts. But I'm stressed, man. I was in a cranky mood. My family pissing me off, not my wife and kids, my sibling. Anyway, shouldn't mention that. I wonder if my family ever listens to anything I do. Anyway, rambling. Mitch Sherman tweeted, Nebraska coach Scott Frost says he has obviously improved defensive line play through less than 2 weeks of spring practice. The first thing is they're coming off the ball. That's been something that I've been frustrated with for a long time. And this struck me in my crankiness and my stress-filled, irritated, ability life. And I retweeted, Scott Frost is working hard to bury his previous. Let me start over. Scott Frost is working hard to bury his previous staff, one he was responsible for. Could someone take him aside and teach him how to talk to the media without being an asshole, or is that completely impossible? Because it strikes me that a lot of times Scott Frost could just say, we're coming off the ball better than we ever had. That's something I've been frustrated with for a long time, because he does this shit and it bugs me. It's just small. Is it nitpicking? Yeah, it's kind of nitpicky, but people got very upset with me being nitpicky, and it's still going on tonight.
54 responses.
Yeah. And some people have chosen not to follow me anymore, which is fine. And I think the funny thing is people are like, you do this stuff for controversy on web hits. And I thought, because you get that stuff every once in a while. And I thought, while I was watching
other sites that make more money are worried about clickbait. And like, we have to sell you the headline to get you to come to our site. Core Nation And look, I apologize. This is going to sound completely biased because it is. We will tell you in the headline what the score of the game was, where like it'll be like Nebraska and Northwestern outcome in the link. You know, it's like, no, here's the score. Click for details. Don't worry. Don't you let me worry about the internet, John. You don't worry about the internet.
But it's been interesting it's interesting always when you say something like that. The first people that respond to you usually agree with you. The second wave is people that are very upset with you. And it elicited a lot of responses where people were, and then other people started responding to other people. So I guess I gave, I was responsible for Husker drama for a day, and Dave Feet tonight replies just a couple of minutes ago. Imagine if Frost had said, obviously improved offensive. It just whizzed past. Obviously improved offensive line play is a priority for us. I've been really happy with the work Coach Raiola is doing. I've noticed how well the line is coming off the ball. You see how different that is from this is something I've been frustrated with for a while, because he's buried his previous staff on a few occasions, very subtly, like backhanded shit. And it bothers me because, this is the kind of stuff that indicates you're still not taking any responsibility for your own fucking actions. That's it is little tiny stuff like that. And the other problem I have with it is this, Greg. He's not just a fucking football coach that's supposed to win games. At the end of the day, he's a football coach that's supposed to be teaching young men how to be decent young men. And really when he says this kind of shit, what he's saying to everybody is, it's okay if you dress up like a woman and get on the lifeboat if the Titanic's sinking. Because I so pictured Scott Frost as being that guy.
All right.
I didn't tweet that up, but I thought I don't want to throw gas on this thing and burn everything down. But you know what I mean?
Not at the price of gas now.
It's okay to bury everybody else if it makes you feel better. That's what bothers me about it.
The kids these days, John, call it throwing shade.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah. So I completely agree with what you're saying, and with the comment, along the thread from Dave. I don't know exactly. I think Dave Fight, who's the one who said, imagine if Frost said, obviously improved offensive line play is a priority for us. I've been really happy with the work Coach Raiola is doing. I've noticed how well the line's coming off the ball. Again, it's perhaps one of Frost's biggest, not deficiencies, but detriments is like, hey man, stop looking in the rear view, like focus forward. The last 4 years clearly have not gone the way anybody anticipated. And let's just try to, and again, I don't know. I'm not trying to defend Frost. That's not my job. Although on this podcast, when you and Todd are here, apparently it is my job.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, somebody has to.
You guys are like, heat wave, Frost sucks. But no, but I'm not trying to defend it, but there is a way that I can't, I'm trying to remember the exact phrase, but it's something like you don't have to curse the sun to see the moon or something like that. Like you don't have to spit in somebody's eye to, I don't know, but you should be positive. Damn it.
I don't expect it to be Tom Osborne, but Tom Osborne knew better than to say shit like that, because it just wasn't in his mentality. And the other, I think one of the other ones that stuck with me is his comments about being able to sit around with smart coaches and have discussions.
Yeah, that's not
okay. Good God, whatever, dude.
And again, so something like that doesn't make him look good,
No,
because
problem.
again, to your point in your original tweet is like, those are guys that he brought along with him, so if you're saying like, if he's making the comments, and I didn't hear his words, so I'm going, hearsay and what you're telling me here, but like, if he's again, given the new coaches, like glowing praise while also, burying the guys that you hired them, Scotty boy.
Yeah.
Come on. You ain't got to be that way.
If you didn't want us bringing up the past, don't bring it up yourself.
Right.
That's what I did today when I was in a cranky mood trying to be. And I thought, what do I get more out of? Just in case you're wondering, if you're listening to this podcast and saying you're just creating this controversy to get paid more. I was working on a firewall today during the hours of which people were going insane over this tweet. In fact, there's somebody right now saying more clicks. I'm doing this to get more clicks.
That's right.
What do you think I'm going to make more money on? Getting more tweets and clicks on our website, or the 4 hours I spent working on somebody's firewall while I was watching this stuff go by? I kind of, in a way, thought I shouldn't have been so cranky and so nitpicky. And maybe I could have not called him an asshole, but there you go. That's what I did today for Huskerdom. And then I watched two of our teams lose.
Right. Good grief. I still don't think this is the quote that I'm looking for. But better to light a candle than to curse the darkness.
Is that a proverb?
It's a quote. I don't know what you want me to do. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, I don't know. I told you I was tired. What do you want from me? I'm not.
Well, that's our show, folks.
You remembered the entire movie. That just shocked me. My wife and I last night. Okay, my wife and I have been on a string of movies where I go, okay, we're going to watch this movie, and then it's the most horrifying movie ever. Like what is the Clove Hitch Killer, which was very good, but very oh god, it's exhausting because it's just the acting is excellent and it's really straining. That's not a very good description. And then I have a serious question regarding you in movies and your brain injury, because when you died and you came back, you used to love peanut butter, and now it disgusts you. So are there any forms of entertainment that you used to, and full disclosure, I'm not talking Nebraska, athletics, but like any forms of entertainment that you used to love that now you're like, you know what, that just doesn't do it for me anymore? Or is there something that you didn't usually used to care for that now you're like, all right, I'll give that a shot? I don't think so. Not really.
Okay.
I would say
that
one change is I grew up listening to very old country music. I mean, I grew up listening to Hank Thompson and, come on, Johnny Horton and Ed Reeves and, stuff like that. The old twangy stuff where all the cows were dying, the women were leaving. And I really don't listen to that hardly at all anymore. And a lot of the reason why it's because it's really fucking depressing music. Right. I try to listen to more upbeat pop or, it's funny. What actually happened is this. Most of my memories of books and movies are completely blown to shreds, but my memories of music are very intact.
Oh, good.
And I have talked to other people who have brain injuries, and we talk about the fact that there's something about music that it builds neural pathways that are stronger than other memories. And, like if I want to recall, I was going to bring up something. You cut me off earlier. My wife and I, last night, I turned on some show on Netflix, The Worst Roommate Ever or something. And the first episode is about this woman that they find in 1982 that is a serial killer. And they're showing these clips, and I think it's 1982, but they show these clips and they're showing news items from 1982. And it strikes me that this looks like the Dark Ages to everyone. And in 1982 was when Todd and I were in college at UNL, and it's kind of like, my God, what happened to these 40 years? And suddenly it's There's no DNA evidence in 1982. There's the film footage. I mean, go back and look at a Nebraska game on YouTube from 1982. It looks like you're watching it through a fishbowl as the water flows by, you know? And you're just like, oh my God, I lived in the dark ages when there was no information. And they were talking about how they couldn't track this woman, even though she had 5 felonies and was on parole. And there was no way to track between people could just move around and start murdering people all over again. It just struck me like that, man. And then in 1982, we had really good, the music was the best ever because we all lived under threat of nuclear holocaust at any time.
You know what else 1982 brought you, John?
What?
This guy.
Oh, well, there you go. That was a good year. Turner Gill and the scoring explosion. Was that 83? It was 83. No, it was 82. Oh my God.
But that's okay. You're allowed to not, be uncertain about that. But to your point about music, like the sense of smell are, they're so tied. I don't have a specific example right now, but I can, smell something that I haven't smelled in 20 years. And all of a sudden I'm a kid at my great grandma's house and she's about to, reach into her porcelain cookie jar and give me some iced oatmeal cookies or windmill cookies, that's what she had. But but music is music ties you because, I was actually just for another podcast that I do. We were having a conversation about songs that would make up like the soundtrack of our life if our life was being made into a movie. And one of the songs that I picked was Beastie Boys, Fight for Your Right to Party, of course.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
When I hear that song, I'm transported to high school because I used to wear out that CD and being the older one of my friends, I was the one with the car. So we'd be going to baseball practice and we'd just be listening to the Beastie Boys every day on the way to baseball practice. So that's, things like that. They're, I think, sense of smell and music are just so ingrained, and maybe it's repetition. You can listen to Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right 100 times in the same time that you could, watch a movie. So I think maybe just based on repetition alone, this is my, I have no scientific, anything, to back up my theory, but just based on repetition, I think might be why those are huge triggers for memories, good or bad. So,
you know what song I had pulled up right before we started?
Ooh, what?
The worst song ever made.
Macarena?
No.
Okay.
Is that all there is? Is that all there is? I'm so far off. It's Peggy Lee's Is That All There Is. Do you know this song? Probably 1964, 1965. It's Is That All There Is, my friends? Then let's keep dancing. Let's bring out the booze and have a ball. And the whole song's about how disappointing everything in life is. And it's a terrible, god-awful song. And I was thinking, what would fit the Northwestern loss better than this piece of shit fucking song? And so that's why I don't listen to a lot of this. Some of this music, I just choose to not listen to Peggy Lee's Is That All There Is? But
so I think what is missing from today's music while we're going there is the art of storytelling. And I say that, a song that I recently listened to, and I listened to it a couple of times, over the span of a few days, is Marty Robbins' El Paso.
Yeah.
But we don't hear too many songs being like the story that musical artists are trying to convey now is, I'm going to tap that ass.
Which I guess is better than dying in gunfights, maybe on a. You can go back into last week's podcast where I was going to die with a bear in a big explosion or something. Anyway, there's not a lot of Nebraska stuff that we have a whole off season of things. I guess there's baseball. Baseball did better this weekend.
They did do better. And we had the pitcher of the week or player of the week,
Yeah.
Big Ten player of the week. So
3-1 record against Northwestern State and UT Arlington.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it should have been 4-0, but they screwed up the bottom of the ninth. Yeah, Todd would say that was Will Bolt's fault. I can't remember off the top of my head who the pitcher was that was doing really well. And then he brought in, I think, Colby Gomez, who hasn't pitched a lot as a closer. And he gave up 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth. And the other team had joy. And then tonight they lost to Kansas State. And I followed the stats on that, but I didn't watch it. Aaron said that it was some of the worst, like the fifth inning, I think they gave up like 5 runs and it was terrible. But midweek baseball is always kind of interesting.
And it's a weird time too, because like we're still at the beginning of March, according to Aaron's right up here, that's already available on coordination.com as we're recording this. So by the time people listen to this on Friday, then, obviously it's been there for a couple of days now. Temperature at first pitch was 36 degrees with that wind chill of making it feel like 28. They lost 6-4 with playing Kansas State, had 3 errors in the game in what Coach Will Bolt said the team not mentally tough enough.
I think they gave up 4 runs on 4 unearned. I'm fading 4 unearned runs. So, just those few base of balls. When your offense isn't batting the ball all over the place, you got to be better at the tiny things. And I guess that's what they need to do. And then our Long Beach State series with them, home opener this weekend, got canceled. So we're trying to make it up with games against UNO, which is, if you got Long Beach State coming to Lincoln, you certainly want to get them there. So that's kind of disappointing.
For sure. But it also wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you got Long Beach State here and it was only like 50 degrees.
50. I think, isn't it supposed to be in the 30s or something? I don't know what it is.
Look, well, they're not coming in, not for temperature, but for the precipitation that might accompany it. But, if you're bringing Long Beach State in and they're used to, sunshine and 75, we're Chip Weathers or whatever the hell their weathermen are down there. You want to get them somewhat out of their element. Now look, Long Beach State's a good program, so I doubt it affects them. What we can talk about along the football route is a lot of Huskers did a lot of good at the combine this past weekend.
Did they?
They did. Both in mostly in like on the field drills. However, Cam Jurgens had a very nice 40.
I'm fading. Cam Jurgens, yes.
That's what I said.
Yeah. I was just repeating it to myself to get it into my head. I was just blurting.
I thought
Farfanugan.
Okay.
That's all, you know what I mean?
I thought you thought I said Ham Jurgens.
That I like.
So that. I was confused. Okay. But his 40 time was actually faster. They had a through the magic of technology, because this is not 1982, but they were able to put a graphic alongside Cam's 40 yard dash, and he actually had a faster 40 than Ndamukong Suh. So he was one of the faster centers. Austin Allen showed good hands, as did JoJo Doman, as did Cam Taylor Britt. I mean, I feel like with all the on-field drills, a lot of the Huskers really performed very well. And I don't think, and look, Brian did terrific write-up on all the combine participants. So again, check them out, all out of coordination, but I don't think anybody got hurt by going to the combine. I think they all elevated their status, which is terrific with the draft coming up in, I guess, next month. Really, it's hard to believe it's already March.
Yeah, I know. It's just that the year's kind of going by. Maybe that's, well, I always tell people don't wish your life away, but maybe that'll be better for the off season if it goes fast. And then we're right back into fall, and we're waiting for that first game against the Nerds in Ireland.
You think that game's still going to be played in Ireland? Because there was talk in the last week that they were exploring more stateside options.
Somebody had tweeted that they thought they had heard the game would be moved to Vegas, but I guess I looked at that and went, why would they move it to Vegas?
And I looked at it, and I'm pretty sure that person has fewer Twitter followers than me. So what the hell do they know?
Yeah, I think you look at it and you go, number one, I guess I get it. You know, what is the package? $4,000 to go to Ireland and watch a Nebraska game. I love my Nebraska football, but I'm not paying $4,000 to go to Ireland. And I don't mean anyone to take this rude, but if I'm going to go to Ireland, and I would like to go to Ireland, I honestly, I don't want to go into an Irish bar that's full of Nebraska fans and go, here's your first experience as Ireland. You brought everybody with you. I want to walk in there and meet Patty O'McDonald and tell me 48 ghost stories and then take me out. And we die in a big explosion fighting a bear in a castle or something.
You don't want to pull a Haas Reuter. You don't want to run into Bob from Brainerd.
Well, yeah, I guess. And then you look at going to Vegas. Why would, if you go to Vegas, right, they have a big shiny new stadium there, right?
Right.
Why would that guy want Nebraska and Northwestern playing there? I don't know. Well, you have money, but.
So can I think I've said this before. In fact, I'm almost certain that I have. When we go back kind of pre-COVID, or at least pre-vaccination portion of COVID, when Nebraska and Illinois was announced in Ireland, my wife and I were giving serious consideration to going, again, not buying one of the packages, but going on our own, getting the tickets and going over there. And I've even said before, my wife knows this, it wouldn't be the first vacation that we planned around a Husker football game. And we've always wanted to go to Ireland. And then COVID hit. And then we had twins. So we obviously didn't go in 2021. And realistically, there's no shot of us going in 2022. I mean, I know that, she knows that, and I haven't even explored tickets or anything like that. Similarly to you, John, I definitely want to go to Ireland. That's on the top of our international travel list, and we don't have a very long list. So I think what we should do is the four of us go out together.
To Ireland?
Yeah.
Who's the
you
four
and
of us?
You and Mrs. Coronation, me and my wife.
What about Todd?
No.
I
mean, look, if he can't make it to a podcast recording when he said, you guys can do it tonight, I can do it tonight. We'll just record over in Ireland without him.
I don't disagree with that. There is one more bit of news that I can think of, and that is the Memorial Stadium survey. Yes,
I'm glad. I was going to bring it up as well. First of all, let's hit some of the high points here, and that is people want more comfortable seats.
When was the last time you were there?
I've never been.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I can't remember what the seats are like. I haven't been in the seats for years. I've been on the field for
of course.
a while, but
I think what it is, it's because I've been to Illinois, and Illinois is not terribly different. I don't mean that from obviously to me as a Husker fan, even not even a convert, but even if you don't know, I apologize to anybody I may offend with the religions that I'm going to say, but if you don't know anything about religion, about our higher power, and then all of a sudden you are immersed in Christianity, that sounds pretty good. And that's kind of how I came to be a Husker fan. I had no allegiances, and I moved to Nebraska, and God bless y'all. You took me in. If he's listening, friend of the show, Josh, you're responsible for that. But I've never been, I've never been to St. Peter's Basilica. I've never been to Memorial Stadium. I'm not saying they're equal, right, but to some people they probably are. But I've been to Illinois' Memorial Stadium in Champaign, and the commonality that I'm imagining is bleacher seats. You get about 12, maybe 16 inches. And let's face it, ain't no butts that are 12 or 16 inches anymore, So that was the biggest thing, as far as
It
points.
sounded like it was the biggest thing by like a mile, like completely.
I looked at. I spent my lunch hour today looking over all of the results of this survey, and I don't know if John. I totally get it if you did not, because you do things and you're busier. But let's go to specifically. Satisfaction on a 1 to 7 scale. The only thing that had below like 50% was seat comfort. Seat comfort was a 3 out of a 7. Parking price was a 3.8. Parking access and convenience was a 3.9. Vehicle traffic flow was a 4. Wi-Fi access was a 4.1. Like, I wouldn't go to a Nebraska football game trying to jump up on Wi-Fi anyway. Event staff and ushers got a 5.9. Overall game day atmosphere was a 5.9. Scoreboards and video boards was 5.8. Security 5.8. Football radio broadcast was a 5.7. There and etc. I mean, that's the two extremes. Elements of Memorial Stadium that could be enhanced. 77% said seat comfort. The next, like the second place was Wi-Fi and mobile connectivity with 24%. Think about that. That's 53% difference between first place and second place.
Right. I guess they better get better seats.
Yeah. Or, look, they're exploring all these renovations and doing all different types of seating changes. And they went into detail in that and gave examples in the survey itself, and certainly in the results. Again, you can see the PDF. Nate was nice enough to include that link in the article on coronation.com. But would you be okay? And look, they're talking about gambling, they're talking about alcohol, and they're using these possibilities they say this could potentially offset, with the income that we generate from these two, we can offset some of the costs of the football tickets. Would you be okay if instead of, I'm going to round up, I think, and say 90,000, it only held 75,000, but everybody had just a little bit more room?
I think everybody be better off.
I don't disagree. We're not.
We're going to get there anyway. Because watching the games, we're going to get to the point that there's only going to be 75,000 people that will show up at games. Just because, not because we're bad, but because, watching the stuff, it's like watching what I mentioned earlier, that game footage from 1982. Now we have 4K TVs. You can see everything, for God's sakes. Mm-hmm. And then you come back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and my family get pissed off at me and leave the room. Right? Look, it's the guard again. Anyway, I've done that to them their whole lives. So, I just think that, you really, wasn't it Mark Cuban in the NBA who really bought the Dallas Mavericks? And he was the one that really focused on, this is as much about the kind of the social aspect and the event and having a good time as it is about the sport itself. And I think for Nebraskans, that we've always loved our football. We've always been very attentive to what's going on in the field. But at the same time, I think they just have to make it more comfortable. They have to make it more meaningful. Mike Osborne is quoted about the alcohol stuff in a article at Husker Online. The article is called "Big Red Business Moving the Ball Forward on Alcohol Sales at Nebraska." And Mike Osborne is quoted as saying, "I personally believe Nebraska is special because we don't do whatever is popular, tempting, or profitable. Instead, our history is that we do what is right. We generally treat opposing teams and fans well. We support our team no matter what, and we care about our children and the most vulnerable. I worry that our kids We'll be watching adults buying and consuming alcohol in a place we have long held as special and unique and devoted to showing the best of what our state is about. I think there's plenty of alcohol available at the tailgates, and most determined fans can figure out a way to sneak in a few sips if they feel it is necessary. And then he goes, I respectfully disagree with those who said the Garth Brooks concert showed that alcohol should be sold at games, whatever. I guess, I am going to disagree with him. I was going to try to waffle a little bit there, but I am going to just flat out disagree with him. I think the problem with doing that kind of stuff, we're showing our kids that we're not buying alcohol. No, we're not. That's not what we're showing them all. We're showing them that we're frauds. You know what I mean? We're showing them, we're saying we're all going to consume alcohol, but sometimes we're going to pretend that we're not going to buy it and that you shouldn't have it and it's bad and evil. You know what I mean? It's like brushing stuff under a rug and pretending it doesn't exist. That's the problem I have when you get this kind of attitude toward things, Well,
let's
kind of like old people like me. Kind of like old people like me that pretend that we always the good days are always there. The old days are always better. No, they weren't. They were just as shitty. 1982, we had nuclear holocaust at any time with mutually assured destruction with the Russians.
And grainy televisions.
It's just like fashion. It's come around again.
Well, let's talk about other people's attitude towards alcohol at Memorial Stadium.
Okay.
41% were very positive towards the sale of alcohol. 17% were somewhat positive. 14% were neutral. 11% were somewhat negative. And if you're doing math like I am, 17% were very negative. I do like how the survey says 72%, like they're highlighting the good. We know what direction they're leaning, right? So it says 72% have a positive or neutral attitude toward alcohol sales in Memorial Stadium. So that's very positive, somewhat positive or neutral. But they don't say that 42% have a negative or neutral point. They're like, and again, 41%. Some of the key comments said, I understand selling alcohol is controversial, but believe it would enhance the overall experience of game day. Allowing alcohol sales with the Memorial Stadium would be another revenue stream athletics could take advantage of. Alcohol sales are a no-brainer. As a recent grad, most people I know leave the game at halftime to drink and often don't return unless it's a good game.
Yeah, you want to show your kids that you're there to support your team, or you want them to go drink at half?
Do you think, and so like I feel like some of these folks are dealing in absolutes. So this person on the negative side says, please do not allow alcohol. I know it will make the university some money, but it will absolutely ruin the game day experience.
That's not necessarily true. The whole make the university money stuff.
Make the beer vendors money.
Let's just say that being familiar with other people that have sold beer at college stadiums, they didn't make nearly as much money as they thought they needed to, because sometimes they increased their security in their staff to make sure there were no problems. Mm-hmm. And whatever revenue they thought they were going to make up, they didn't make because they had to increase their staff. So they also have to, you have to have people there that are, you don't just bring beer in and it sits in kegs all fucking week waiting for people to show up, right? Somebody has to be there and set all that shit up, and they have to figure out how much they're going to have, and they have to get the lines right so that when you go to pull the thing to get somebody a beer, foam just doesn't blow up all over the place. So there's a lot of costs that go into this stuff too. And
nobody wants too much head on their beer.
That's oh my God. We never grew up, did we? Anyway.
No, we don't. So what do you think about an alcohol-free section at Memorial Stadium?
I think it, then I don't know. It's kind of like saying that's the nice part of town. You should make it all the same for everybody. You know what I mean? I remember when Minnesota went into this, and they really had an argument about we're only going to have it in one spot. And a lot of people were like, oh, so it's an elitist thing. Only certain people can have this and other people don't get it at all. So I don't know, maybe an alcohol-free zone would be nice. On the other hand, maybe it just, you know what? Maybe you should just be a fucking adult and accept that people are going to have alcohol sometimes around you. And if you don't want that, just go home and hide under your fucking bed. How's that for a strong opinion?
22% of respondents said that they would actually attend more if there were alcohol sales. So those 22 people need to go also to attend some Alcoholics Anonymous.
I don't think anybody's going to go to a stadium and get blitzed on $10 or $12 whatever it is beers. You know, I don't. On the other hand, you go to the airport sometimes and you see massive shit tons of NFL fans flying to all the games. So maybe people do just dedicate their life to having a lot of stuff, you know, spending a lot on alcohol. But I've never seen that. I'll take that back. How many NFL games have you ever been to?
Quite a few.
Yeah, it's a different crowd, isn't it? Completely different. Yeah, it's full of a lot of really obnoxious fucking drunken people that have no compunction whatsoever and swearing their asses off in front of your children, no matter how many they are or how old they are. Am I incorrect in that statement? Or is it just the Vikings fans that I've been around?
I've been drunk at football games. Steelers Rams in 2007. Yeah, I think Steelers Rams 2007, maybe 2008, something like that. I was one of those, like, I was out tailgating. It was a Monday night game, and so I was tailgating at the Casino Queen along the east side of the Mississippi River, and did not have to drive. Took the Metrolink over. So I started drinking at like 1, and I stopped drinking at halftime. But the difference, like, I would have been one of those obnoxious people, but I like to think the mom and dad raised me right. And they were also there at the game, so I had to kind of behave. So, but no, you definitely, and like, I try to be, especially taking, you know, my oldest, I've taken him to, well, we've been to Cardinals games, and we went to a St. Louis Battlehawks game for that one that they had before the season shut down from COVID. So I try to be very conscious of how I'm, you know, we've joked about this on the show before. I'm trying not to swear in front of my children, and you give me shit for that because you're like, somebody's got to teach them.
Right.
Turns out it's kind of my wife.
Well, good for her.
Yeah. God bless her.
She's got
but balls. And yep, she carries them around in her backpack because they're mine. But no, to answer your question, the short way, yes, a lot of drunk, obnoxious people at NFL games.
And I suppose, you know, I mean, when you go to Madison, if you go to Wisconsin games, holy shit, you know. And I imagine a lot of those people are much like that before they ever walk into the stadium. So I get that some people, no, I don't. It's not a church, for God's sakes. It isn't a church. Stop pretending it's a church, because it's not a church. And this is one of the things that constantly bugs me about Nebraska football is we act like it's a church and a religion. And it isn't. It's just a football game. It's a social event.
Hot take. It's another one. You're racking them up today, Chief.
Am I?
Well, I mean, between this and Twitter,
it's what happens when I get really tired and I don't have any filter. I get frustrated. I was frustrated today with 3 different firewall I couldn't fix, authentication system I couldn't fix, and an email system I couldn't fix. You know, nowadays the younger people work on one thing. They don't work like 38 different fucking things. I should quit this. I should go get a different job.
I want to give a shout out, as you mentioned, before we go, because look, this is where, as we get into the offseason, especially now that basketball's over, because there's no invitation anywhere except to the gym for more practice. But we're going to need your help, folks. And John, I would like you, because everybody likes you more than they like me, myself included. I would like you to do your best sales pitch to get folks to like we can always have a portion of the show that's kind of mailbag centric.
That would be a good idea. Either that is we're going to start turning part of these shows into, like, I don't know, submarine technology in the 1960s.
We do the John and Greg, and if he decides to show up, Todd variety show, start singing and dancing. I'll learn a couple of magic tricks.
You know what the second worst song of all time is?
The Macarena.
No. I don't know, but if I have to find it, I'd really urge people to give us some ideas on what they'd like us to talk about. And that could include history. I thought about going back to history, like going over the old Husker nicknames, things like that, except putting them in context of the times.
I'm all for it. I am all for it. John, sitting here with you every week is such a joy. And you always entertain me. And oftentimes you educate me as well. So, yes, please bring some of those topics to the show, as time allows. And you mentioned it earlier before we go. Again, I started to, and then I got sidetracked because that's what I do. Manage your damage.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about that before we go, because it's a manuscript you submitted to the editor just earlier this week. And you're deciding between some cover art. What is It's a follow up to your New York Times bestselling "Been Dead, Never Been to Europe."
That's a memoir. This is I don't know if it's a self-help book. What is it? It's called The first one will be called "Manage Your Damage, Heart Attack Survivor," and it's directed at heart attack survivors, because when people have heart attacks. I mean, like me, mine came out of the blue. I never expected to have a heart attack, for God's sakes. If you put on a list of things I was going to die from, it would be down there like eaten by sharks, blown up in a big explosion while fighting a bear, It just seemed impossible. And then you have that kind of stuff happen to you, and you're faced with anger, anxiety, depression, and then physical problems like fatigue and memory loss, things like that. So I go through all that stuff, that what people can expect, or, kind of what I dealt with really after I had my heart attack, and then how I actually tried to recover most of my life. And so the first one is for heart attack survivors. I'm working on a second one that'll be for traumatic brain injury survivors. And I might do another one also, but I haven't decided yet. This writing about this shit is really hard. It really sucks, because, I never expected to die. And then you write about your own death to like 30,000 times in different ways. It really is kind of, I didn't expect to be here. That's really what it comes down to. And you want to know what I figured out the hardest thing in life is, Greg?
What's that?
It's being where you want to be versus where God wants you to be. And that sounds really religious, but I never expected to be here. But since once you tell people, yes, I've had a heart attack, they all of a sudden start opening up to you about their problems a lot more. So it's like buying a car, and you never saw that car, and you buy the car and you see it everywhere. Well, I've talked to so many heart attack survivors and people who have brain injuries and stuff, because I recognize brain injury people now. And it's been, I just feel like they suffer a lot. I just did a short interview with a woman who is in the UK. She had a heart attack out of the blue, like I did, but then she didn't die. She had, it was a heart attack, but it didn't damage your heart like mine got damaged. But like 4 weeks later or 8 weeks later or something, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I'm supposed to be on her podcast and do an interview with her. And one of the things she talked to me about in this interview we did to figure out what we're going to talk about is the differences between heart attack survivors and breast cancer. And she said when she left the hospital for heart attack, she was just kind of like, there you go, goodbye. Because our hospitals are really good at taking care of trauma. They really are. but they're really, you go to a heart attack, you get fixed for the heart attack, you go to cardio rehab, they teach you a lot, but nobody helps you with the mental problems. So they will recommend like therapy or counseling and things like that, but mostly they don't do a whole lot. And so all these people are left to flounder on their own and figure it out. And then when you get to, she said when she had breast cancer diagnosis, she said, literally her line was, I felt like I was wrapped in a warm, cozy blanket by all of the charities that came to me and offered to help, and all of the people and all of the organizations that were there to help me through the process. And I was like, holy shit. I never even really thought of that, but it's true from everybody I've talked to about brain injuries and heart attacks. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do is, I don't know, get a book out, see if it'll help. I don't know. I wanted to write a fiction novel about like mole people coming up.
Mole
from the
people?
ground. Mole people.
Nice.
Mole people coming up from the ground and taking over dystopian world.
I'd read that too. Manage Your Damage 1. How I overcame anger, anxiety, and depression after the heart trauma. Manage Your Damage 2 will be about the brain trauma. And Manage Your Damage 3, how I overcame anger, anxiety, and depression after 20 years of Nebraska football.
Before the year before come on, when was this? I was going to go jump in a frozen lake.
Like the polar plunge?
The polar plunge. I was going to do that. And the people I was going to do it with said, you need to talk to your cardiologist. We don't want to, you need to get that cleared. And so I sent a note to my cardiologist, and you know what he responded with? And we'll just close the show with this. He responded with this.
Can't do any worse.
No, he said, it's not any really different than experiencing something else that might cause your heart to elevate quickly, such as, being an offender bender or being startled or watching a horror movie or something like that. And then he concluded with this. He said, I would think that somebody who's endured the rigors of the last few years of Nebraska football would be able to withstand this without any problem. And I thought, you son of a bitch, what a great line, Yeah, he's a Wisconsin alum. But there you go. That's what he said, the inherent risk of life that we all face and taking that into account. But he had to jab me with the Nebraska football thing. Okay, there you go.
What a way to end the show, John. We've been all over the map in this episode. I guess the biggest takeaway, folks, is go to your nearest movie rental place and pick up Revenge of the Nerds.
Even my dog is stirring.
There are some scenes in that movie that'll stir even the oldest of men or beast. So that is it for this episode of the Five Heart Podcast. For absent Todd, we got, of course, our good friend, founder, fearless leader, John Dam Johnston. I'm Greg Mahochko, reminding you this week and every week that two things: we're damn glad John's here, and Five Heart's all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red!